you say the difference between your relationship with your father and your mother? How are your relationships with them different?
Pop was always very much disciplinarian. I remember him literally marching into my room when I was 7, 8 years old and nailing a picture to the wall. It said, "Genius is attention to detail, Louis Pasteur." Okay. And Mom, she always had
was he quite a strict did he punish you?
Oh yeah, I was very much pushed to learn to read at an early age and to get involved in sports at an early age and, go for it.
And how would he, if you didn't do what he wanted, how would he punish you?
Oh, we used to have raging fights. He used to be very physical, and back and forth and a lot of noise and such. Not so much hit now that you look back on it. At the time, oh yeah, it seemed like Frank Bruno time, But no, it was just a lot of wrestling around. I was a very active kid.
So you'd fight back?
Mm-hmm.
And when you say you were a very active kid, you were one of these sorts of kids who'd be he'd be saying, "Now come on, David, you do this," and you'd be kind of struggling with him.
Oh yeah, they used to walk me around on a leash when we'd go off to the park. They'd put a little leash on my belt so I wouldn't run off. Because I was always very much, I like to observe.
Do you think that you're more like your mother or more like your father?
I think I'm a combination. Like I was trying to indicate, it's, I thought I knew where exactly it was coming from. I thought I knew where the source was. Oh, Mom did this, Pop did that. Now it turns out Mom's a little sterner now, and Pop is out, in the film trade.
Did they stay together?
No.
They got separated?
Yeah, when I was just before graduating out of high school, my parents got divorced.
Can you remember that?
Vividly.
When did you hear? Where were you when you heard?
Oh, I was aware that there was going to be a parting of the ways for years leading up to that. I'm sure some of it was based on my performance in school, what have you.
Really?
I was always a good student, but I was always rowdy in the playground. I was always having, my tribulations. This is a big time of racial upheaval as well in the United States, in the world. And 68, 69, they started integrational busing, and it was not all copacetic. Like, we didn't have the Michael Jacksons and the Princes as the great mediators, the great links,
And you were at school with a lot of racial groups who...
Oh, yeah.
But how could you blame yourself at all for your parents divorcing? That sounds...
Oh, anytime, what are we going to do with him? Well, we'll do this. No, that's the wrong thing. I disagree. It's like when you have...
Do you really believe that? You really believe that...
I'm sure I was partly responsible for that. But the chemistry between two people, you can't decipher exactly, what's causing what. But it's the kind of thing of, what are we going to do about this kid? Well, you got one path and another path.
But, children of divorcees very often do blame themselves, particularly when they're very small. But, of course, it can't be right. It couldn't be. You couldn't have caused the breakup of your parents' marriage.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I said, I'll be specific, 7%.
If you had to go to a psychiatrist, suppose you had a problem, what would it be?
I wouldn't go to a psychiatrist. I think perhaps I'd be able to find it within myself. I find a lot of direction from books, from reading, and that ranges from Schopenhauer to Batman.
Supposing sort of things were going wrong in some aspect of your life or in some way, and you couldn't solve it yourself, and you decided to go and see a shrink. Say a friend of yours said, "There's a really good shrink here, go and see him." What do you think would be the problem that you'd be seeing the shrink for?
Probably not affiliating with a social group on any regular basis. Probably not becoming part of any real peer group. When I was a young child, they labeled that off hyperactive. I wasn't a participant with all the other kids on the playground. I was off reading something. I was off with Jack London in the Snows, or I was off, so-and-so. Now they say I'm an overachiever.
When you were sort of thinking, what career shall I have? Did you think, I will earn my crust by being a rock and roll star? How much did commerce motivate you as opposed to art?
I learned early on that if you really want to be an artist, you have to pursue it with a lot of discipline, and you really have to, hold on one sec. Y'all, if we can quit shuffling and moving around in the papers and stuff. Let's stabilize.
Sure.
Where were we?
Okay. When you first went into the rock and roll business, did you think of it as a business? How much did you think it was, that you had sort of deep feelings within yourself that you wanted to express, which is what artists tend to think?
It's a combination. You can't express yourself if you're continually broke and you can't afford to get into a studio and you can't land a recording contract. And even if you do land one, unless there's some degree of rent paying involved in there, they're going to take your record contract away. You're not going to have anybody in your audiences, and a lot of musicians will give you some hippie nonsense about, oh, I'd still be doing this if I was broke. Oh, I'd still be in little bars playing. Yeah, after you get off your day job, you'd be playing and pursuing your muse. But that's generally not the way most musicians really perceive it. What they tell you and how they perceive it is usually two different things. My parents always drilled it into me. It's not so much a question of success and, hey kid, how much money did you make at the end of the day, as it was, did you pursue it like a pro? Were you a trooper about it? Did you do your homework? Did you put your time in? Now, a lot of this sounds very opposite, antithetical to, rock and roll, the idea of, freedom, fantasy land. Here's a way to go stratospheric. Well, it takes an e-ticket to go to Fantasyland, particularly if you want to do it as a career.
What's an e-ticket?
Well, you have to, you got to pay for it in one way or another, and that's not always money. My best friends were books. My best friends were the radio, and the combination is, I guess, what we're creating here now.